So, when you think about classic Hollywood, those old black and white films, what is it about them that glamour, those huge stars, why do they still feel so, well, so magical?
That's a great question. And that magic, that allure, it really took shape during what we call the golden age of Hollywood,
Yeah.
roughly, late 1920s up to the early
Oh,
60s.
that's right.
It's just a revolutionary time, not just for movies themselves, but how fame worked, how stars were made. It changed everything.
Exactly. And that's what we're really getting into today. We've got some fascinating stuff here about those big golden age stars. And the plan is to, unpack what made that whole era tick, why it's still so captivating.
Yeah, and we're looking beyond just the final movie you see on screen. We're digging into the whole machine behind it all.
The
The
machines.
studio system, yeah.
Hmm.
And how they crafted these star personas, sometimes completely manufactured. Even the rules they had, the limitations, actually pushed them to be more creative in some ways. It's kind of the origin story for the entertainment world we live in now.
Okay, so let's kick things off there then. How did these actors even become these massive stars?
The material we've got really highlights this studio system.
Yeah.
What did that actually look like back then?
Well, picture just a handful of huge companies. MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount,
Mm.
the big ones. They weren't just making films, they basically own the whole process.
The whole thing.
Pretty much. Financing, filming, getting the movies out there. And crucially for this conversation, finding and grooming their stars. They had these massive studio lots, like little cities, with everything they needed.
Hmm.
And everyone worked for them. Actors, directors, writers, all under long-term exclusive contracts.
Wow. So these studios weren't just like enabling creativity, they were actively building these legends.
Absolutely. That's the perfect word. They'd spot someone with potential and then just meticulously shape their entire career.
Meticulously. How so?
Well, these contracts, they often control everything. What movies they made, obviously, but also public appearances, interviews, sometimes even who they dated or were seen with.
Oh, yeah. The studio decided the image the public saw. Period.
And this whole system created people like Clark Gable. He was called the King of Hollywood, right? What made him the king?
Dable, he just embodied this kind of rugged American masculinity that people really connected with, especially during tough times like the Depression.
Okay.
He had this charm, this magnetism, but also felt kind of grounded, relatable, even though he was this massive star. And the studios knew exactly how to use that, casting him in roles that showed off his strength, but also like a romantic side, kept him constantly in the public eye.
Then you have someone totally different, like Katharine Hepburn. She seemed like she played by her own rules, even inside that system.
Oh, Hepburn was, yeah, she was something else, a real force. What jumps out is just her incredible talent, obviously, but also this fierce independence.
Right.
She wasn't afraid to push back against what people expected from women, on screen and off. You look at her roles, like in Bringing Up Baby or The Philadelphia Story. Right. She played these smart, funny, strong women. That wasn't always the standard for female leads back then. She really, I think, expanded what was possible for women in film and set a whole new standard.
It's amazing how distinct they all were. And then there's Humphrey Bogart, that sort of cynical, world-weary guy, but still romantic underneath. Casablanca, Maltese Falcon.
Hmm.
They still hold up so well. What was his secret?
Bogart, he tapped into something complex, maybe a bit darker, especially, with the world going through war and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
His characters often had baggage, a tough exterior, but you sense this core of integrity or, like you said, a deep capacity for feeling. That gray area made him feel very real, very human, even while being this huge icon. Plus that voice, those mannerisms, unforgettable.
And you absolutely can't talk Golden Age without Marilyn Monroe. The notes here describe her as this mix of vulnerability and, well, pure allure, a symbol of glamour but also mystery. Sounds like her image was also very much managed.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Monroe's persona was very deliberately constructed.
Yeah.
Highlighting the beauty, the sex appeal, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what made her stick, I think, was that fragility you could sense just beneath the surface.
Yeah.
The studios definitely amplified that whole image, no question.
Mm-hmm.
But, her own charisma, her talent, those were real. She just became this global symbol of a certain kind of Hollywood magic that honestly still resonates.
Okay, so we've got the powerful studios crafting these huge personalities, but films need visionaries behind the camera too, the directors. The material brings up Hitchcock and Orson Welles.
Exactly. Stars drew the crowds, sure, but directors like Hitchcock and Welles were the ones really shaping the art form, the language of film itself. Hitchcock, right, the master of suspense, he basically rewrote the rules for thrillers. It's fascinating how meticulous he was, controlling every single detail, and his tricks for building suspense, like how he'd play with what the audience knew versus what the characters knew. Genius.
And Orson Welles. Citizen Kane. I mean, people still talk about how innovative that film was. What made it such a game changer?
Citizen Kane just blew everything wide open. Wells experimented like crazy. The way the story unfolds, using flashbacks, different viewpoints, nobody was really doing that then.
Visually, too, right?
Oh, stunning. The deep focus, the dramatic lighting, the low camera angles, it just looked different. It showed film could be more than just, simple entertainment. It could be complex, challenging art. That really pushed the whole medium forward.
It seems like there was this constant tension, though, between what these filmmakers wanted to do and the rules of the time, like the Haze Code. That always seems like such a weird constraint.
The Hays Code is actually a perfect example of how limits can paradoxically spark creativity. It was basically this list of moral do's and don'ts for movies, self-imposed by the industry.
Right, like things you couldn't show.
Exactly. Too much violence, sex, even questioning certain social norms,
Yeah.
all off limits. So filmmakers had to get really clever. They became masters of suggestion, of hinting at things,
How
while using symbols, clever dialogue, editing, ways to get ideas across without showing them directly. Think about how they handled things like affairs or crime. It often led to this really sophisticated, subtle storytelling that's pretty amazing when you look back. You almost wonder if the films are better for it in a strange way.
It definitely makes you appreciate their skill. And the notes also mention this manufactured side of fame, the star system controlling the public image. Sounds like the reality wasn't always quite as glamorous as the photos.
That's so important to grasp. The star system was all about crafting and maintaining a specific public face. The studios managed everything, how stars looked, who they were seen with, what they said.
That must have been intense pressure.
Huge pressure. And, when that carefully built image started to crack or reality leaked out, that's when you got the big scandals, the public fascination with their private lives. It really shows you the power dynamics and how much of what people saw was essentially an illusion.
So, for someone listening now, maybe wanting to explore these older films, where do you even start? The material has some good tips for watching classic cinema.
Yeah, these are great pointers. First one is just appreciate the craft. Look past the story sometimes and notice the technical side.
Or the look of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Early Technicolor, how amazing that must have seemed. Or the way they moved the camera in films like Citizen Kane. These were real breakthroughs.
Okay, watch with an eye for the art. Makes sense. The next tip is about understanding the context. Why is that so key for these old movies?
Well, knowing what was going on in the world when these films were made, the Depression, World War II, the Cold War, it just adds so much depth.
Ah, right.
These movies reflect the times,
Oh.
the fears, the hopes, the values. Understanding that history helps you understand the themes, why characters act the way they do, what the film is maybe trying to say.
And then exploring different genres. It wasn't all just serious dramas, was it?
Not at all. The Golden Age had everything. Dark, moody film noir, huge, splashy musicals for pure escape, witty screwball comedies, big historical epics.
variety.
Tons. Each genre gives you a different window onto American culture back then. So yeah, definitely don't just stick to one type. Sample around.
The material also suggests looking into the stars' actual lives. How does knowing about them personally help?
Sometimes knowing what was happening in an actor's life off-screen can add another layer to how you see their performance.
Like it informs their roles.
Maybe. Or it just makes these huge icons feel a bit more human, more relatable. Knowing their struggles and triumphs can enrich how you view the characters they played.
And the last tip, watch with a critical eye. Thinking about the societal norms and values. Sounds a bit like homework, but maybe in a good way.
Aha, yeah, maybe. But it's fascinating. These films are like time capsules. Watching critically means noticing how things like gender roles, race, social class were portrayed. What was okay then, what wasn't. It's a great way to see how society has changed, and maybe how some things haven't changed as much as we think. It's a study in cultural history, really.
These are all really useful ways to approach classic Hollywood, and for people who really want to get into it, there are a couple more outside-the-box ideas here, too.
Yeah, for the super keen, like trying to find a film festival that shows classics. Seeing them on a proper big screen with an audience.
Oh, that would be amazing.
It really is a different experience. That communal magic, seeing it as it was meant to be seen.
Definitely adds something. And the other idea is joining a film club.
Right. That turns it from just watching a movie by yourself into something more social and intellectual. Maybe you get to talk about the films, hear what other people think, catch things you missed.
Yeah, sharing those perspectives could really open things up.
Totally. Makes you appreciate the films on a whole new level.
This has been a fantastic deep dive. It really drives home how much that golden age still matters.
It absolutely does. The impact is just undeniable. On movies, obviously, but also fashion, music, our whole idea of celebrity and popular culture, it laid so much groundwork.
It really makes you wonder, though. You think about how carefully constructed those star images were back then. So controlled. And then you compare it to today with social media, where everything seems so much more, I don't know, authentic or unfiltered.
Hmm.
What do you think we've gained or maybe lost in that shift from the crafted mystique to the constant access?
Yeah, that's the big question to end on, isn't it?
Yeah.
On one side, maybe we feel closer to celebrities now, more direct insight. But on the other,
Mm-hmm.
has losing that carefully built mystique, that distance, maybe taken away some of that larger-than-life magic, that sense of wonder the Golden Age stars inspired. Definitely something to chew on.